time to time, her smile suggested she was enjoying some private joke. And often, far too often, she daydreamed. Julia had begun to have serious doubts about Cassidy St. John's suitability. After returning Mrs. Summerson's rejected choices to their proper place, Cassidy took up her post by the changing room. From inside, she could hear the faint rustle of materials. Idle, her mind did what it invariably did when given the opportunity. It drifted back to the manuscript that lay spread over her desk in her apartment, waiting. As far back as memory took her, writing had been her dream. For 4 years of college, she had studied the craft seriously. At 19, she'd been left without family and with little money. She had continued to work her way through college in various odd jobs while learning the discipline and art of her chosen profession. Between her education and employment, Cassidy had been left with meager snatches of free time. Even these had been set aside for work on her first novel. To Cassidy, writing was not a career, but a vocation. Her entire life had been guided toward it, leaving her room for few other attachments. People fascinated her, but there were few with whom she was deeply involved. She wrote of complex relationships, but her knowledge of them came almost entirely secondhand. What gave her work quality and depth were her sharp talent for observation and her surprising depth of emotion. For the greater part of her life, her emotions had found their release in her work. Now, a full year after graduation, she continued to take odd jobs to pay the rent. Her first manuscript worked its way from publishing house to publishing house, while her second came slowly to life. As Mrs. Summerson opened the door of the changing room, Cassidy's mind was deep into the reworking of a dramatic scene. Seeing her standing with proper handmaidenly reserve, Mrs. Summerson nodded approvingly. She preened ever so slightly. "This should do nicely. Don't you agree?" Mrs. Summerson's choice was a flaming red silk. The color, Cassidy noted, accented her florid complexion, but was an attractively sharp contrast to her fluffy black mane of hair. The dress might have been more appropriate if Mrs. Summerson had been a few pounds lighter, but Cassidy saw possibilities. "You'll draw eyes, Mrs. Summerson," she announced after a moment's deliberation. With the proper accessories, she decided, Mrs. Summerson might very likely look regal. The silk, however, strained over her ample hips. A sterner girdle, Cassidy diagnosed, or a larger dress. "I think we have this in the next size," she murmured, thinking aloud. "I beg your pardon." Preoccupied, Cassidy failed to note the dangerous arch of Mrs. Summerson's brows. "The next size," she repeated helpfully. "This one's a bit snug through the hips. The next size up should fit you perfectly." "This is my size, young woman." Mrs. Summerson's bosom lifted, then fell. It was an awe-inspiring movement. Deep into solving the accessory problem, Cassidy smiled and nodded. "A splashy gold necklace, I should think." She tapped her fingertip against her bottom lip. "Just let me find your size." "This," Mrs. Summerson stated in a tone that arrested Cassidy's full attention, "is my size." Indignation seethed in every syllable. Recognizing her mistake, Cassidy felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. "Whoops," she said silently, then pulled her scattered wits together. Before she could begin soothing Mrs. Summerson's ruffled ego, Julia stepped from behind her. "A stunning choice, Mrs. Summerson," she stated in her well-modulated contralto. With a non-committal smile, she glanced from her customer to her clerk, then back again. "Is there a problem?" "This young woman," Mrs. Summerson heaved another deep breath, "insists